What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Brand podcast. Today, we are going to be going over, we're going to be going over what to avoid if you are selling on Etsy and you are going to be selling in Q4, where there's some mistakes that we are noticing. All right. And these are mistakes that I think can be prevented. I hope that they can be prevented for you because you're going to watch this in time or you're going to listen to this in time. The whole idea here is for us to bring these to your attention. And then you might say, you know what? I'm not making any mistakes. And that'd be awesome. But you might be saying like, you know what? I could learn from that one mistake and maybe I'm going to do it a little bit differently. And that's our hope here. And really kind of go through each and every one of these. As you probably know, it doesn't matter what platform you're selling on. Q4 is coming. Now, depending on when you're listening to this, this should be airing or this should be live in July. We're at the end of July, heading into August. Well, believe it or not, you should be starting to prepare for Q4, like right now. Can you start in, September? Yeah, absolutely. But if you want to take full advantage of every single month in Q4, then it's best to start as soon as possible. And actually, right now, I'll put a little shameless plug out there. Chris and I just announced that we are going to be doing what we're calling the Q4 Etsy sales training camp. And we're looking at this as kind of like football season, right? Football season is preseason is starting like right now. People are starting to show up to camp and they're going to be doing workouts and exercises. They're going to be running plays and they're doing all of this to prepare for the season. Well, that's what we're doing here. And we just announced it that we're going to be doing this. It's a 4-week training camp. If you are interested in joining us, you can head on over to brandcreators.com/camp. And you can join us over there, depending on when you're listening to this, because the class is going to start on August 9th. I say class, it's the training camp. All right. So if you're interested, brandcreators.com/camp. If you are late and you are watching this later, you can still go there and we may have the recordings available. Don't know yet, but go over there and check it out or get on the wait list for when we do another one. All right. So Chris, anything you want to touch on before we actually get rocking and rolling here and cover these 5 Etsy selling mistakes that people are making in Q4?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing is it feels early. Right. And I know we're going to dive into this, but if you guys have been hanging out with us for any length of time, you've probably heard us talk in the past about getting ready for things early. And while a lot of people, Scott, myself included, have to have deadlines and like just shoving things off. Scott, are you a procrastinator at all?
I can be, but I try not to be, obviously, as we all do. But yeah, I think that if you give me a deadline, I'm going to get it done. Like, I'm not going to not get it done. If you don't give me the deadline, I might push it just a little bit, I'll get there tomorrow. Right.
So let's go back to high school. I know it's been a little while for both of us at this point.
It's been a minute, as the kids would say.
It's been several minutes.
Thousands.
But they give you a paper in high school, right? And when were you working on that paper? Like, so they gave you, let's say they gave you a month to get the paper done. Were you one of those kids that would get it done like the first day, or would you be the kid that was up till 3:00 in the morning the night before?
Okay. So there's 2 answers I'm going to give you. The first answer is if it was something that I really didn't know much about, or that was weighing on me and I wanted to get it out of the way, I may knock that out. Okay. Or at least I'd get a good portion of it done. I'm the type of guy that if I'm going away or something like that, even though I don't have to get certain things done, I kind of want to feel like things are caught up or things are ahead so I can relax. So part of me would say I would try to get it done. Now, that doesn't mean I did. Now, if it's something that I dreaded and I was just like, I don't want to do it, I'll just wait. I would probably wait the week before to start it and then probably finish most of it like the day before. Like, that's probably how I would operate. So I think it does depend, but for the most part, I'm going to probably wait to the last minute because it doesn't have to get done. Let's just go play. As the kids, let's just go on out and play some baseball,
I think I fell into the same boat. I was the kid that always wanted to be done early, right? So they'd give me a month. Day one, I'd pick my topic and start doing the research, and then I would forget about it. until day 29, right? Like until the day before. And then I go, what was that thing that I was going to do? Oh yeah, I haven't done any of this yet. And that works in high school, and it worked at least for me in college as well. But unfortunately, that doesn't work in this ecosystem. And the reason for that is, even though the deadline might seem like it's 4 months away, right? Because we're still 4 months and a week out from Christmas, or 4 months, I guess, almost exactly 4 months out from Christmas.
Yeah.
We have to be ready for Christmas before Christmas. We can go last minute Christmas shopping, but as the people selling the products to people at Christmas, we can't do that. And so that's why we wanted to talk about these now. We have essentially 2 months from the time that we're recording this till Q4 actually starts. We have August and September, right? Q4, October, November, December. So we have 2 months and a handful of days to before we get into that period. But there's a lot of things that we need to think about and prepare, even if we don't have them done. But we have to start thinking about it at this point, because the deadline is not Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. The deadline's like the beginning or middle of September, right? And so that's the mindset shift that I want people to make moving into this. And we're going to dive into the 5 mistakes here in a minute, but it feels like the deadline is a lot further away than it is, because we have dates on the calendar. And in this case, those dates are deadlines for the people celebrating the holidays or celebrating the things that happen in Q4, doing the things that happen in Q4. They're not the dates that the people selling the things to the people who are celebrating, or, having whatever celebrations, purchases that they're making in Q4 have. So it's two different things. And a lot of times as humans, we fall into that. Oh yeah, Halloween's 3 months away. I don't have to be thinking about that yet, because I haven't even thought about digging the literal skeleton out of my closet yet. But as the people selling the skeleton that people will have in their closet, we do have to be thinking about that stuff now. So that's just kind of the frame I wanted to set before we jumped into it.
Here's an interesting thing too, and this is something that I think that we all should be paying attention to, is that when you walk into a Lowe's or a Home Depot right now, I noticed here we are, we're in July heading into August right now, right? Like I would think that summer stuff is in there. Summer stuff is like still full price, right? No, they literally have things marked down 50% on outdoor furniture, cushions, like all the stuff for the patio, right? And they have Halloween stuff already out. They have this skeleton playing the guitar, with these other skeletons, and it's right out front as soon as you walk in the door. And we're not even into August yet. So if that doesn't tell you, they're trying to take advantage of the next holiday or the thing that's happening right in the season, whether it's fall, whether it's whatever, right? They're actually going after that a couple of months beforehand, right? Even though Halloween isn't until October, like the end of October, they're giving themselves, let's say some of July, but let's say August, September, and all of October. They're giving themselves 3 months, 3 months. So should we learn from that? Because they have like big marketing teams and stuff? Yeah, probably. So it's the same thing. If you're selling on Etsy, on Amazon, on eBay, like wherever, and you're trying to capitalize on that fourth quarter, you have to get in there early. We're going to talk about these because that is one of the mistakes. So we got to kind of gave it away there a little bit. But that's the big thing right now, is you have to get in the mindset that even though it doesn't feel like Halloween, you got to start thinking about Halloween in advance. So with that being said, Chris, anything else before we dive into these 5 Etsy selling mistakes in Q4?
One, I just wanted to throw out a good Halloween, because that's all I can think of now. And to your point, Scott, I think you and I talked about this. I was at Target last year on December 26th, so the day after Christmas. They were not just dealing with the Christmas returns and the Christmas rush, but tearing down all of the Christmas stuff and literally putting out Valentine's Day candy on December 26th. Right? They were putting up the Valentine's Day displays. And so that is a shift we have to make. I know as consumers, we all hate it, right? Like everybody I talk to is like, remember when you could just celebrate the holidays around the holidays and not 3 months in advance? Yes. And as a consumer, you get that luxury, but as a seller, you don't necessarily have that luxury. And so with that in mind, right, thinking about having to start getting into Q4 mode, Scott, what is the first mistake that we see people.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead. I got some notes here. I'm going to pull up. I've got some here and I've got some right there. We're going to see how this works. But here's what I want to cover. All right. I want to share with you these 5 Etsy selling mistakes in Q4 that you can avoid. And that's the whole idea here. So I'm going to go through these. We're going to talk through these and we'll give you some examples. But the very first one is the lack of research to evaluate a product or products that are in your niche. All right. So here's what I mean. We need to, number one, do the product research, but we have to do the product research from either our own stuff that we did the year before, so learn from that, and also do product research for products that are in demand. And there might be certain things that are different this year than last year, as far as like maybe certain fabrics, maybe certain styles, maybe certain colors, right? Those are the things that now we need to do the research like right now. So this way here, we can start to implement that. And that's where I see a huge mistake that is being made by a lot of sellers that have either started selling maybe late in the year or early in the year, maybe January, February. And they're not in the mindset that like, okay, well, you can go back and look at your stuff from last year, but you can't because you haven't sold anything yet, right? But you can say, okay, how can I prepare for this Q4 and starting with Halloween? So if we start there, that means we want to start looking at sales history from last October. Well, you might be saying like, how do you do that? It's a great question. So here's what I would do. All right. Number one, if you don't have your own sales history, what I would do is I would start going through, if you aren't using a tool, and I'll mention Everbee here in a second. But if you're not using a tool, you can just search, okay, someone's shop that's been selling things, right? Look at their reviews, see how many reviews they have, and then go back in their reviews and see what they did last year, right? So that would be like the old-fashioned way of doing it. But now what we can do is use a tool like Everbee. And within Everbee, the cool thing is they added a feature that wasn't there last year, which allows me to, number one, do a search. And then, like, let's say I'm looking for Halloween or baby Halloween sweatshirts. Like that's what I was looking for, right? And I would punch that in. Then what I can do, or what I used to be able to do, is I'd be able to then look and see what's coming up on page 1, right? It would give me all the top stuff, right? Or all the stuff that's showing up there. But now what they've done is they've given us access to all of the past, all right, different listings that have sold from 12 months ago, 24 months ago, right? And now what I can do is sort, and I can start to look at that data. All right. And that's one little tip, one little trick that I would definitely be using is you're looking at the database that Everbee is compiling. See, Everbee is collecting all of this data. Now, if you guys are listening and you aren't using Everbee, I definitely recommend, even if you only use it for Q4, I definitely recommend you using it. You can try it for free. There are some limitations to it, but definitely check it out at brandcreators.com/Everbee. And even if it's just for fourth quarter, because this here is going to give you that intel that you don't have to go and sift through reviews and all of that stuff. So that's something I definitely think is a mistake, is people are not taking the time to do the research to see what has sold in the past or what is in demand. Because the last thing that we want to do is just launch a whole bunch of products and say, I hope they sell. We want an idea of what's selling. Here's another little tip for you. If you are thinking about just looking at your own niche, that could also be something where there's opportunity if you look outside of just your niche. Because what you can do is you can say, okay, that worked good in that niche. Can I apply that same type of design? Can I maybe that same type of personalization that I can offer, some type of saying? Can I incorporate that to be in my own niche? So that's something that I think is missing for a lot of people. And they just think that I'm just going to launch a whole bunch of products that I think are good. And that to me is a mistake, because you're probably wasting time, and you can just speed that process up and get products that have sold in the past by getting, the intel, getting the data, and then you're going to be able to have more products that are going to have a greater chance of succeeding. So that's number one, lack of research to evaluate products that have good demand. Chris, anything you want to say on that before we roll on to number 2?
There's a couple things, because especially with the way you and I talk about niches, Scott, the habit of people is to say, all right, so what sold well for my competitors last year? And that's where they will stop. But there's 2 or 3 other layers that I'd like to see people add on to this if they really want to get the most out of Q4. So not just what sold well in your niche last year, but taking those same tools and looking at other niches, other things that you're interested in that you might not be selling. What sold well for them for Halloween last year, for Thanksgiving, for Black Friday, for Christmas, and see if you can take an idea that you find elsewhere and apply it to your market. Is there what was the it was Game of Thrones, I think, was, I drink beer and I know things, right? And that is something that was applied to a bunch of different niches. It was kind of a generic thing. And it was, I knit and I know things. I cook and I know things, right? That's an example of that. Now, I'm not saying rip that off, but take a look at other niches and apply the research that you're doing with Everbee to those other niches. And then just sit down and think about, because we do have enough time to actually go through this process, is there a way that I can apply this idea or this design to something in my niche? The other area that I would be looking that a lot of people miss, and it's mind-boggling to me that they do because they were the people who made the purchase, but what products or what types of things did you buy for yourself last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago for Halloween? Do you have those types of products in your store? If not, you should be considering adding those kinds of decorations, those kinds of gifts, those kinds of things to your shop. And then lastly, Scott, I would also say, take a look at whoever your supplier is. And this really does especially apply to print on demand people. What new product types has Printify, Printful, any of the other print on demand providers? What new product types have they launched? These guys are launching new product types all of the time. Can we then double down with designs we know sold well last year on a mug and apply them to a tumbler now that Printify or Printful has new tumbler types, right? So we need to not just be looking at the numbers. We need to be thinking a little bit more creatively, but starting with that foundation of using Everbee to figure out what sold in your niche, then using Everbee and just common sense to look at what sold really well in other niches. What products did you buy for yourself, your friends, your family last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? And then what new product types are available to you as a seller that were not available last year? And if you do those, that's 4 things, I believe. If you do those 4 things, that's going to get you a long way to starting to set that foundation. And it sounds like a lot to go through that process, which is why we are starting now.
Yeah, I think starting now is the big one, right? It's like, let's get going. So that kind of leads me to the second thing that we see as a big mistake for a lot of Etsy sellers, whether they're new, whether they're seasoned Etsy sellers, is not launching in time. And they're basically late to the party, right? We like to be at least 30 and even better, 60 days if possible. So this way here, we can start to get indexed. We can start to maybe get a few sales and then start to spike the algorithm. Because here's the other thing. If we start to get sales earlier than our competitors, guess who's going to outrank who? Yeah, we're going to be able to outrank our competition. So not launching in time to me is a big mistake. And if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, then there's no excuse, right? We're giving you the heads up right now. If you're watching this in December, well, then you just have to think to yourself, how can I apply this to future holidays, not just, Q4, right? So you can still take this and kind of run with it. So I like to look at it as like we're holiday hacking in a sense, but in this case, Q4, I recently interviewed Stephen Chin, who's a $1 million Etsy seller, and he said that he's got a lot of friends that also are successful Etsy sellers, and 80% of their sales generally are from Q4. So with that, let's go ahead and double down. Right now, if you're watching this before Q4, if you're watching this the time that this is live or the time that it's airing, there's no excuse. Like, we got to get to work, right? That's why we're doing this Q4 training camp that we talked about. And if you're interested in joining us on that, you can head on over to brandcreators.com/camp. And that's our preseason. That's our camp. That's where we're working out together, right? We're getting everything in line. But yeah, not launching in time is a big one. And as we speak right now, here we are, and I'm going to put the date in here, even though in the video it might not be the same, right? It might not be close to this date because this will be live on YouTube for a while. But like right now, we are at the end of July in 2023. Okay, and right now, and I'm gonna kind of put my wife on the spot. How many products have you been probably working on here in the past week? 25. And that's a guess. She probably more. 25. Okay. And these are designs, these are different products, all of the things. And what holiday is that for? Halloween and fall. All right. So there you go. And so, guys, like I said, like as we speak, like my wife's right over there and she's got Canva up and she's working. Like she's putting in designs. Like that's what she's doing right now. She's in the groove and she's just putting stuff in. Now, with that being said, it's funny, she's launching some of this stuff. And as she's done that, she's been getting some sales on some of her other products and not necessarily these new ones, but because of that, people that have been in the shop before, this is a little side note, by the way, people that came or that have been in the store before that have either bought something or favorited something, they're getting notifications when she puts something new up. Now they might not buy that one thing, but they're going to look and say, oh, yeah, I want to buy that blanket now. Right. She actually had a couple of, I think it was a couple of Christmas stuff that sold here not that long ago. And I know we had someone in the comments that said that they sold like 3 ornaments in the last week or something like that, Christmas ornaments. So you got to get in the game early, right? And I'm not saying that if you're listening to this in October, you're late. No, you might be late for a Halloween, but you're not late for fourth quarter 100%, right? We can still do fall. We can still do Christmas, right? Hanukkah, all of the things that kind of go on in that time frame, or just people that are getting gifts for Christmas. So launching in time, like get in the game as soon as possible. Chris, anything you want to speak on that before we move on to number 3?
So done is always better than perfect, right? And late doesn't mean that it doesn't work. But Scott, are you familiar with the phrase Lombardi time?
Yes, I am. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I have heard of it. Explain,
yeah,
please,
and
Chris.
It's a quote from Vince Lombardi, right? Which is, if you're 15 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. And that can apply here, right? Even though October 1st is 30, depending on how you want to count it, 30 or 31 days before Halloween, you're actually 30 to 60 days late at that point. And why is that? The first reason is it takes time to get indexed for Etsy to really understand what your product is, who it appeals to. And if you're waiting until a week, 2 weeks before, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get sales, but it does mean that you can lose out on the vast majority of that traffic. People have been buying Christmas ornaments for weeks now. Somebody in the comments got not 3 ornaments in the last week, but they've been consistently selling ornaments for the last 3 weeks, right? All of July. People are at the beach. It is 95 degrees and thunderstormy outside right now, right? It's not Christmas. There's nothing remotely close to Christmas in the air right now, and yet people are already doing this. And if we don't get up early, if we're not 25 minutes early to match Vince Lombardi, then we are late. And it's because of how the Etsy algorithm works. One, we lose out on the people buying Halloween stuff in June, which is okay, right? The vast majority of people are going to be waiting till August, September, the beginning of October. But the real reason that we miss out is even if we launch the day before all of the hype begins, the way that the Etsy algorithm works is they want to present the product that is most likely to sell to the person searching for the product. How do they do that? Well, one, if it's a new product, they give you a little bit of a chance in the algorithm. And yes, you will pick up some sales that way. But realistically, they're looking at conversion rate over time. So when somebody sees your product in the search results, how likely are they to click on it? Well, Scott, if there's a test with 4 questions and you get one wrong, I know I'm going to make you do math here. What do you get on that test? So you get 3 out of 4 questions correct. What do you get on that test?
I get 1 out of the 4.
So you get 3 right and 1 wrong.
Oh, 75.
Right. If there are 10 questions on that test and you get 1 wrong, What do you get on that test?
I get 10. I mean, what, 9 right?
Nine right, 1 wrong.
I got a 90.
Right. So the
Stop
more
making me
questions
do
on
math,
the test,
Chris.
I know the more questions on the test, the more you can get wrong. The same thing applies here. The more people that see your listing, the more people that come to your listing and don't buy, the more you can deal with in terms of not having a lower conversion rate, not having a lower click-through rate, right? It's the same exact thing as those questions on the test. And that's what I want people to think about. The more chances we have at getting the sale, the better off we are, because it makes our listing look better overall to Etsy. If they send 100 people to our listing and we get one of them to buy, that's a 1% conversion rate. If they send 1,000 people to our listing and we get 100 people to buy, that's a 10% conversion rate, right? And so the more chances we have, the more bites at the apple we have, the better off we are in the eyes of the algorithm, because it allows us to make mistakes. It allows us to be put in front of more people and not have to worry about making sure that every single person buys. Now, should we set the foundation with that expectation? Yes. But is that realistic to expect? No. And so the more chances we have, the better off we actually are, because of the way that percentages work and the way that Etsy's looking at these things. They want the highest converting listing. Well, if we only have 4 chances to sell and we sell none, then we have a 0% conversion rate. But the more people we get to the listing, the more chances we have to sell, the higher that conversion rate can be for us. And once we start to get some of that data back in August, September, the beginning of October, and we say, this conversion rate isn't where I want it to be, I'm not getting as many sales as I should be compared to my other listings. What did I do different here? What can I change? And we actually have the ability to go in and change based on the data to get more impressions from Etsy. And so the sooner that we launch, not only do our numbers look better because we're getting more chances, which makes it okay for us to miss every once in a while, but it also gives us the time and the flexibility to look at the data and make adjustments, which we cannot do if we're launching in October. We're just not going to have the data, and we're stuck with whatever we get from Etsy at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's super important. And I mean, the next thing that we're going to be talking about will kind of go really well with what you just shared, because it does come down to getting sales, right? And when we're getting sales, what Etsy's looking at for the sales is they're looking at the conversion rate, and whoever has the better conversion rate is going to outrank. It's just the way that it works. But what you're saying, Chris, is like the quicker that we get in there, okay, the quicker we're going to be indexed. And then also the quicker that we're going to start having some data and some history within Etsy, and they're going to be able to evaluate ours much better than someone else that's just brand new with a new listing up against ours. So the conversion rate is really, really important. And that's just a simple way of thinking about like trying to get like people to buy. The more people that buy from an impression, that's just going to increase everything for you. So we'll get more into that here in a second, but let's move into the third mistake. And this one here is a big, massive mistake. And it's really because I don't think people understand it. No fault of people that are just starting, by the way. But I think that if we get the mindset right and we understand what this is really used for, it can make a huge difference for you. And what that is not using Etsy ads and having the mindset that I'm not going to spend money on Etsy ads until I make money in my Etsy shop. So let me explain. And Stephen Chin, I had him on the podcast. I'll link it up in the description here if you guys want to listen through that. He's a $1 million Etsy seller. He's got a great new tool that he just launched called Hello Custom. But he had said his launch strategy, which I agree with, by the way, is using Etsy ads not to make money, but to get sales. So what he does, and the way that he framed it too is perfect, is like he doesn't look at Etsy ads as an expense necessarily. He looks at it, well, it's an expense, but he looks at it as a tool, right? It's a tool to get sales because the sales are going to trigger Etsy, their algorithm to say, hey, this thing is getting a lot of sales. We should probably put them in the top of the search results organically. And like he said, once he goes through this, even if he doesn't make any money his first 1, 2, 3 weeks, then what's going to happen though is on the backside of that is where he starts to make the money, because now no one else can really compete because he's way ahead in sales, right? So in the very beginning, the mistake is people are not willing to spend money on Etsy ads. And I'm not saying you got to spend a whole bunch of money. You can start with $2 a day, $5 a day, whatever. But if you have the mindset that, you know what, if I was launching a brand new business, I had a brand new shop, right? A brand new storefront, right? And no one knew about me yet, but I was on a road, right? And people were driving by. How am I going to get people to actually come in? Well, I got to spend some money on a little bit of advertising, or I got to buy some signage for out front, right? You're spending money to get awareness. The same thing with Etsy ads. The beautiful thing is like, you can launch your product. You can SEO it to death, right? You can SEO everything. Great title, images, description, your tags, everything's perfect. But you know what? There's other people that have the same SEO strategy that you do. That what they don't have, and what you could have, is you could have more sales. And you can do that by running Etsy ads and forcing yourself to get exposure on day one, right? So if you think about it that way, it just changes everything. Now, is everyone going to do that? No. Is that good news for you? Yes, because it's an opportunity that is missed. And in fourth quarter, it's a great opportunity because why? More traffic, right? We're capitalizing on that. And the one thing, I was just having this conversation with my wife the other day. I said, listen, you can come out with a design and then someone else can copy your design. There's going to be hundreds of people that are going to copy your design or your saying or anything. But the way that you win is by you putting yourself out there, trying to get out there first, or at least top 10, and then you being able to outsell them. And then if you do that, you're going to be so far ahead. People can come in, you can get thousands of people coming in. It's not going to matter because Etsy's only going to promote and push the ones that are getting sales. Why? Because Etsy wants to make money just like you do, right? So if you understand that mindset on how it really works, it might click for you to say, I'm going to spend some money on some Etsy ads, right? So it's just changing the mindset, but really using Etsy ads as a tool, not necessarily as, oh, I'm going to run ads and make money. Like it's about running ads, getting exposure, getting conversions, getting sales. That's going to give you more awareness by putting you up higher in the search results. Okay. And then you'll get 20% of your sales from Etsy ads, but 80% of your sales are going to come from organic. Did I explain that well, Chris?
You did. And I think the concern that people have, especially in Q4, Scott, about running Etsy ads is that ad costs go up, right? As people who receive ad money from YouTube ads, on our blogs, on our, in other places, we love Q4. Why? Because people spend more on ads. One, to get in front of people, and two, because a lot of companies work on what's called baseline budgeting, which is basically like if the marketing department doesn't spend all of the money, they don't get that much next year, right? And so as people who get money from ads, it's really nice. As people who are running ads, it can feel counterintuitive to spend 20 cents more a click or 30 cents more a click during Q4. But why is that worth it? Well, one, there's more people buying things during Q4. So obviously we want to be in front of those people, and running ads is another way to get in front of people. The thing that people miss is it's not really about the sale, although that is one part of it, especially with new products. And if we're talking about launching products specifically for Q4, if they weren't products that were in our shop last year, then they are going to be new products. The first step in that Etsy SEO algorithm that we like to talk so much about is whether or not you match the thing that somebody is searching for at all. So if they're typing in Halloween garden flag, right? Is that the type of product that we're selling? If yes, then we qualify. But then the very next thing that they look at is click-through rate. So how many times do you get in front of people versus how many times does somebody click on your listing? And just like we were just talking about, the more bites that we have at that apple, the more questions that we have on that test from Etsy, the better off we are, because we can have fewer people click, or, that ratio looks a lot better for us the more impressions that we get, as long as we are getting a click-through rate. How do we know if we're getting a good click-through rate? We can compare that to our other listings, but we have to get those clicks and those impressions to be able to make that comparison begin with. We have to get that data. If we don't get that data, then it's not helpful. What's the second thing that they look at? If somebody comes to your listing, are they buying? Guess what? Ads are great at driving sales. They're great at driving impressions. So we're giving Etsy exactly the data that they want to see in terms of being able to rank for us. But Scott, I think the biggest thing that people miss with ads is they get so focused on SEO, and they think only of SEO as the title that they're typing in or whatever. What I just talked about is a much more important portion of SEO. But also, there's a million different ways to refer to different products on Etsy. And if you try to shove all of those keywords into your title and your listing description, chances are that you're not going to do great on the conversion rate side because people don't know what it is. So one huge benefit that ads give us, because they do give us clicks, they do give us impressions, and they do give us sales, is that they actually give us the data we need to make the right choices about what to change. We can, in the Etsy backend, take a look at what specific keyword that somebody typed in that led to a sale. So I can, instead of saying garden flag, yard flag, backyard flag, 100 different million variations of that in the title, I can look at when somebody types in backyard Halloween flag or Halloween garden flag or something like that, did that lead to a sale? If that's leading to a lot of my sales, then I can potentially change my listing to be specifically around those keywords, which makes us more relevant, which makes it more likely that somebody's going to buy from us. And it gives us the opportunity to take a look at what's working and what's not, and double down on what's working. And 99.9% of marketing, whether we're talking about SEO or we're talking about running Etsy ads or ads on any other platform, is about doing more of what works and less of what doesn't. And ads give us that data in a very short amount of time. And so even if we're not going to run ads the week before Halloween, we could be running ads now. We could be running ads through August and through September to start collecting that data, even if we don't want to spend the extra 30 cents a click as the season starts to ramp up, so that we can really solidify our organic placement. And to your point, Scott, you just said we're probably going to get 20, 30% of our sales from ads and the other 70, 80% from organic search. We can get all of the data that we need now by running ads. There is no reason not to do it, because it gives us all of the information that we need to solidify our place in the organic search results, only around the things that are highly likely to lead to a click and highly likely to lead to a sale. And if we wait for that data to come in organically, by the time we start to get that data, it's going to be too late to really optimize for the things that are not just being searched for, but that are being purchased from.
Awesome. Great job explaining that as usual. Here's what I want to know though, in the comments, or if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can always come over and join us, by the way. We're over on YouTube and we're in the Facebook group, but just search Brand Creators, you'll find us. But if you are here live or even on the recording and you're watching this on a replay or whatever, let us know in the comments, are you using Etsy ads in your business right now, in your Etsy shop? Just curious how many of you are and how many of you aren't. And if you are not, let us know what has held you back. Why haven't you? So just curious, drop that in the comments. And also, before we move on to number 4, do me a little favor here. Help us with the old YouTube algorithm and give us a little like and maybe a little comment, maybe a little, I don't know, you can share, you can do all kinds of things. Whatever you do to give it a little bit of love, that would be amazing. You can subscribe to the channel, all of that good stuff. So smash that old like button for us. And you don't have to be gentle either. You can hit it as hard as you want. Just be careful. You might hurt your phone, but just make sure that you go ahead and give that a nice little click, a little love. We'd appreciate that. All right. So let's move on to mistake number 4 on what Etsy sellers are missing for Q4, and something that's very, very easy to fix, by the way. And this could actually increase your sales in like an hour or less. So you probably want to know what it is, right? All right, here, I'm going to give it to you. Turning on the email, okay, the coupons inside of your Etsy shop. So there's some automation built inside of your Etsy account, okay, in your marketing. And what you can do is you can set up these coupons that will go out if someone favorites an item, they can get an email from Etsy. Now, not everyone is going to get the email. Okay. You do have to, like when you are in the Etsy platform and in the Etsy, ecosystem, you will have to opt into that. So not everyone gets that. But I've been looking at my numbers, and I have been since we turned it on, and it's pretty good. I mean, like and it's automated. You set this thing up once. So before you get the holiday rush, turn this thing on, because every single person that comes into your shop, they now have a chance to favorite something. They have a chance to maybe add something to a cart, but not buy yet. And then you might also get someone that does buy, and you can actually kind of encourage them to buy a little more, right? So here's what I mean. You have your favorites. So when someone just clicks on that little favorite, right? They hearted it. A couple things are going to happen. We can set it up to where automatically they will get a notification that you are willing to give them a 10% off discount or whatever. You just have to set it up once and you're done, right? Set and forget. Okay. The other thing that happens when someone favorites it is now you're also, or they're also going to get any type of notifications of activity in your account. So as you're adding new products, boom, alert. So-and-so just added a new sweatshirt, right? Or, hey, so-and-so's running a sale. Go check it out. Oh, so-and-so's low in inventory on this. You might want to go back and check it out. All of these notifications are going to happen because of that favorite, okay? And that's all done internally within Etsy, all right? So that's something that you want to set that thing up as soon as possible. The second thing is your abandoned carts. Your abandoned carts is someone added it and they might want to buy it, but they haven't bought it yet. Well, this is to kind of get them over the edge, like kind of like, hey, I know you're interested. What do you say I give you a 10% off coupon? Will you buy it today? And then they're like, yeah, you know what, I will. Or it's even a little reminder to say, hey, you put something in your cart, you still want it? And then you can encourage them to buy it. Now, what also can happen here, and this is where you can kind of get this ripple effect, is where you also set up a thank you coupon code. And that thank you is going to go out to anyone that does purchase. So think about this for a second. Someone favorites it. They get an email notification. They don't buy. Maybe they added it to their cart. So now they get their added to cart coupon. And let's say that they do buy it. Well, then guess what? They're going to get another email that would say, hey, thanks so much. How about you take 10% off or 20% off another item in my shop? So you see, all this marketing is all pre-built. All you got to do is just turn it on, set up some parameters, take you 15 minutes. So that's something that I really, really think that should be done as soon as possible. All right. So that they're not turning on the internal email marketing that's already built in, huge mistake, missed opportunity. Turn that on today. Chris, you got anything on that?
Not setting your foundation. This one drives me bonkers, right? Especially because we're literally just leaving money on the table. If somebody favorites your item, it's not quite the same thing as adding it to the cart, right? If somebody favorites it, they're saying, I'll buy this later, but I really like this. I want to think about it a little bit. I'm not at the place where I'm ready for it. Maybe I'm starting to think about Halloween in July or Christmas in July, and I want to go back and look at my favorites later. I like to think of this, Scott, as somebody pinning this product to a Pinterest board, right? A favorite is kind of like an inspiration. It's something that they're interested in, but not interested enough to buy right now. If we give them that little bit of incentive, that may push them over the edge. So there's no reason not to set that up, not to give them that notification. And also, if they've favorited your product, beyond some of the automation, if you decide to run a promotion during Q4, they get a notification about it, right? So we get a second bite at that apple. It's all about bites at the apple. An add to cart is somebody saying, I want this right now. Even at that stage, Scott, the average abandoned cart rate is 69.99%. So let's just call it 70%, which means 7 out of every 10 people that add a product to their cart are not going to complete the purchase process as they're going through it. We need to follow up with those people. And in fact, you can get 15, 20% of those people back, which means you're adding another 1.5 to, let's just call it 2 sales, if you're doing something like this out of every 10 people. So instead of getting 3 sales out of every 10 people that add something to their cart, you're getting 4 sales or 5 sales out of those same numbers of people. Why is that important? Let's go back to the conversation that we keep having about how the Etsy algorithm works. It's all about click-through rate and conversion rate. Anything that we can do to start to increase the number of people that are purchasing from us when they come to our listing is a good thing inside of the Etsy ecosystem. This is something that is available to sellers, it's mind-boggling to me that it's not something that a lot of people take advantage of. And then on top of that, right? So we have favorites and we have the abandoned carts. Those are people who are just kind of looking. The thank you notifications are people who have bought from us, right? Thank you for purchasing. Now go buy something else, is essentially what we're saying there. The best time to get somebody to buy from you is not when they're really interested in something. It's actually when they've just bought from you. I know that that sounds counterintuitive, but they've done tons of studies on this. And every time that they do, it's easier to sell something to somebody once you've sold it to them. Why? Because they already have decided that they like you, that they like your stuff enough to give you their credit card. And if they liked your stuff enough to do that once, there's a great chance that they like your stuff enough to do that twice, 3 times, 4 times. And the real secret to that is, one, it's always less expensive to sell something to an existing customer than it is to find a new customer. But two, it gives us an outsized benefit in the Etsy algorithm. I know I keep saying that word, but the reason for that is we send them that thank you coupon. They probably already have an idea of what the thing is that they want to buy. So that's 1 impression, 1 sale. That's 100% conversion rate. That's as good as you could possibly get from Etsy. So not only does it increase our profit, not only does it increase the total number of sales that we get, but it helps boost those listings, which may not be the listings that they came in on to begin with, because they were looking at just the Halloween garden flag. And then they go, I really like their Halloween garden flag. I wonder if they have a Christmas one. Boom, they get a coupon in their inbox saying, thank you for buying your Halloween garden flag. Go use it on anything. They go, I'm going to go over to Scott's store and see if they have a Christmas one, because I like to swap that out with every season. And my wife is going to kill me if I don't have one for Christmas. So I'm going to go get that right now. I don't even have to go look at another store. I don't have to do anything else. I know that they sell bass fishing garden flags. I just bought one for Halloween. Let me go save 20% on the Christmas one right now. 1 impression, 1 sale. That helps skyrocket the other products in our store. It increases our average order value, and it increases the total number of sales that we are making. There's no reason not to set these things up. All they lead to are more sales, which leads to more impressions, which leads to more sales.
Yeah. Yep. It does. And that's why we're saying turn them things on like now. All right. So there you go. Okay. So number 5, this one here is, again, something that we didn't realize last year until we actually did it. And now this year, I would say 90% of our products are going to be this. And here it is: offering personalization. Now, before you go running off and saying like, well, Scott, personalization, it's a lot of work, I don't want to have to touch each order. I get it, right? But you have to also look at the opportunity there. And there's also a tool, and I'll mention it here in a second, that just rolled out, but it is a lot of work. I mean, just ask my wife. She'll tell you, like, it's a lot of work, right? Like every single order, you're like bringing it into Canva, you're personalizing, you're exporting it, you're uploading it into Printify, creating a new order, pressing submit, like all of the things, right? But with that being said, if you know that you're going to offer that and it's going to increase your sales, are you willing to do the extra work for the extra sales? That's what you have to ask yourself. Now, again, it was a lot of work. It's not going to be as much work. It's going to be like 80% less work here in a second when I share with you what we're talking about. But when you add personalization, number 1, it's a popular keyword. If you look at keywords that are being searched for, customized, personalization, that keyword alone, or those types of keywords, are searched for. Okay. They get a lot of searches, right? If you are looking for something specific that you can put someone's name on, address, zip code, like whatever, you're going to put in there personalized pillow, right? Like whatever, you're going to put that in there. So you're missing out on that opportunity. The other thing that you're missing out on is there's less competition in that pool, because there aren't as many people that are doing the personalization. Now there's a lot of people doing it, but there's not as many. So you automatically remove yourself from just the normal herd and you kind of bring yourself over here into this smaller one. All right. So offering personalization is, to me, something that we added. And I would say, and I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but I would say last year, 60% of the orders, maybe even higher, were personalization. Okay. Now, With that being said, like I said, my wife had said to me when we were leading up to this fourth quarter, she's like, man, I am not looking forward to Q4. Like, I don't even know if I want to offer as many options, because personalization it was a headache. It was a lot of work. But then I met Stephen Chin, who he built his whole business off of personalization. He had like 15 employees, and his whole shop was like people just punching in orders and personalizing and all this stuff. But he created a tool called Hello Custom. And this tool allows you now to basically upload your graphic into the tool, okay? The design, let's not even call it a graphic. It is a graphic, but it's a design, and it will have your personalization spot in there. And what it'll do is it will deconstruct that image, and it will create your text field, and then it will automatically pull that information in from your order, and then it will automatically populate it, and it'll send it off to Printify. So it's literally like saving probably per order 15 to 20 minutes. Not even joking, right? Because it's clunky, right? You're in and out of different tools. Like I said, the order comes through, you go to Canva or whatever your editing tool is, you then personalize it, you bring it back out by downloading it. Then you have to go into Printify, create a new order. Then you have to basically put it in there, finalize everything, push send, right? It's a lot of back and forth, right? And when you're doing, 100 orders a day or more, it's a lot of time. But think about this, and this is what we're really excited about, is all my wife's got to do now is upload that image once into this tool, okay, Hello Custom. And then once she does that, she's pretty much just got to go into Hello Custom when she has new orders, and it'll tell her the new orders. And then she just has to click a box that says approve. And if she approves it, it automatically takes the text that the person entered on Etsy that they want to be personalized with, and it automatically puts it in there. Now, it also has a preview where you can see like, well, I don't like the way that the text is formatted or whatever. You can see if there's something or misspelling or something like that. You can go ahead and edit it and then push send. You still don't have to go in and out of these different tools. It automatically integrates. So very excited about this. It is in beta right now. If you're interested in checking it out, make sure that you do head on over to brandcreators.com/hello. And you can go ahead and sign up there. They do have a free plan. I still believe that you pay per transaction. Check it out. It might be for you, it might not. But if you're offering personalization, oh my gosh, this is like a game changer. Like, I'm imagining my wife in the car. We're coming back from a beach volleyball tournament with my daughter, and she's like, oh my gosh, I've got like 25 orders I got to do when I get home, right? Well, now she can just log in on her phone, look at the orders in Hello Custom, and then if they're good to go, she can just push one button and say approve, and it'll automatically do it for her. Amazing. So definitely check it out, brandcreators.com/hello, and you can check it out. It's really, really cool. Chris, anything you want to speak to about personalization before we move on?
Yeah. So the real question is, why don't people offer more customization, personalization on Etsy? And it's because most Etsy sellers are part-time. They're doing this as a side hustle. And especially during Q4, and Scott, you said, I think it was Steven's orders were 80% in Q4. I don't think we were quite that high last year, but it's pretty close, right? 50, 60, 70% of your orders are going to happen in the next 4, maybe 5 months of the year as people start buying gifts, right? And if you are doing this part-time, even if you're doing this full-time, it can become very overwhelming very quickly because of the way that the process has worked up until now. But why is it worth it, even without something like Hello Custom? Well, the vast majority of sales on Etsy are gifts for other people and unique products. And there's nothing that's more unique than something that's personalized for the person that you are giving it to. Even if it's something that 100 other people have, no one has the exact same version that you do, that you are giving to that person. And so it is seen by the person receiving the gift as a higher value thing. Why is that important? Well, one, it makes you look better as the gift giver, but two, as the seller of that product, you can also charge more. So even though it takes a little bit more time, energy, and effort without using something like Hello Custom, you can sell things at a much higher price. And because they're seen as more unique, because they are custom, you can sell more at a higher price. And so when we layer on something like Hello Custom on top of these facts and we can make it easier, there's no reason not to offer personalization and customization in Q4. It's a couple extra bucks a month to be able to sell substantially more at a much higher price. To me, that's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I think what we need to realize is that it is an opportunity. Does it require some, more work? Yes, it does. Right now with this tool, it's going to make it even easier, but it still requires more work, right? But it's an opportunity, and I always say, like, when there's something that people don't want to do and you're willing to do, it's an opportunity, right? So take advantage of it. All right, so that is your five mistakes and really missed opportunities that I believe Etsy sellers are missing out on for Q4. So make sure that you go through them again. You might want to rewind, watch some of these back, because to me, these are game changers and we are heading into Q4. Now, Chris, we do have some questions that I want to address that come in all the time about Q4, about running ads, about all of the different things that we kind of talked about. I want to address those, and I want to go a little bit deeper into some of these. So let me just kind of kick this thing off. All right. The first question is, should I turn on Etsy ads in Q4, or are they just too expensive and I should not?
Yes, you should be using Etsy ads in Q4. This is a no-brainer. And I know we talked about the Etsy algorithm a lot. We've talked about this, but it's going to give you all of the data that you need to make the decisions. Do Etsy ads, do any ads cost more in the fourth quarter of the year? Absolutely, they do. Why? Because there's more people buying things, especially somewhere like the Etsy ecosystem during the fourth quarter. So there's more people turning them on. Is it still worth it? Yes. Why? Because it gives us impressions, it gives us sales. And at the end of the day, Etsy ads are actually more transparent than Etsy organic search in terms of the data that we can collect as sellers. And if we turn those ads on, the earlier, the better, we get that data back substantially faster than we would. Why is that data important? It will tell us what keywords people are typing in that actually lead to sales, so that we can better optimize our listings to pick up the vast majority of sales, which are going to come on the organic side of stuff. Scott, you and I were talking 70 to 80% of your sales are going to come from the organic side, even if you're running Etsy ads. Why would we turn that on when we don't need to spend money to get 70% or 80% of our sales? Well, if we really want to maximize that 70 or 80% of our sales, we have to know what we're getting impressions for. We have to know what we're getting sales for, and we have to know where our conversion rates are the best. And if we use the ads data, we get a much clearer picture of that than we can on the organic side. Not only do we get more data, we get faster data because we're forcing Etsy to put us in front of people instead of waiting for Etsy to give us the chance to get in front of people. So I would say not only turn them on as fast as possible, and then start going through the optimization process, not just on the ad side, right? Turning off keywords that aren't working for you on the ad side, but looking at your organic listings and saying, every time somebody types in flip-flops, I make a sale. I need to make sure that my listing is optimized for flip-flops and not sandals or the other thing that could also be confused with women's underwear that they use in Australia, right? We're going to take those types of keywords out of the listing and really optimize for the thing that's leading to sales on the ads and the organic side. That's going to give us a much more solid position on the organic side. And the only way that we can do that is by collecting as much data as possible. How do we do that? We turn on Etsy ads. So even if they're not the most profitable thing that we've ever done, it's worth it just to get the data back and to be able to optimize early, so that as the traffic starts to pick up for whatever it is that you're selling in the end of September, October, November, and obviously in December, that we're already locked into that position on the organic side.
Beautiful. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is another big question that I hear a lot is, how early should I list new products in my Etsy shop in Q4? And so here's my thoughts on this. I like 30 to 60 days. Now, 30 days, that's like last minute. Okay. Like I would prefer it to be 60 days. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're heading into that season and you've got a really cool design, you got a cool new product you want to launch it. With that being said, if you are doing that, my recommendation would be then is go really, really hard on your launch using Etsy ads. So what I mean by that is if you're just coming in to, the fourth quarter, let's just say that you're coming into Halloween and it is, let's just say it's October 1st, but you're like, oh, I've got this really cool design. I want to launch it. You can, but here's what I would want to do is I would want to launch the product, make sure all my SEO checklist is done, right? Like I've got all the good stuff. I got the good title. I've got my good images. I've got good tags. I've got good description, all of that stuff. Want to make sure I got that, but I'm not going to sit around and wait for it to rank because that could take 60 days, 30 days, whatever, right? I am going to start running Etsy ads. So this way here, I can get that product to be seen on day one and start getting sales, which is going to help me rank. So that's what I would say if you are launching late, 30 days. If you're 60 days, you can be a little less aggressive on that. Now, I still would probably do that because I want to get seated. Like I want to get in a position where Etsy is going to put me out in front for when the traffic does come. When people are searching, I'm already indexed. I'm already getting top page or top position. So in the beginning, I would say, depending on where you are, 30 to 60 days, even 90 days isn't a bad idea. All right. Like right now, depending on when you're watching this, we are all of 3 months before Christmas, but we're going to start putting Christmas products in the shop. Obviously, we're going to work on the first holiday, then the second, and then the third. But to me, it's never too early to put stuff in the shop. But if I was looking at like how early should it be, at the very least 30 days, but I would say 60 to even 45, 90 days, like somewhere in there, right? Like we want to give it some time. And we also want to give it that effort with some Etsy ads. So that's my thought on launching your products, how soon you should launch your products. So that's what I would personally do if I was launching products in Q4. Chris, let's move on to the next one. And this one here is going to be similar to what we talked about, but we want to talk about something that has to do with Etsy ads, but yet maybe we can do without Etsy ads. So let me just ask you the question. How can I get more sales without spending on Etsy ads? Chris, what do you think?
On one product? So just the same product, or what are we talking about here? Because there's a couple different ways that we could do that, right? We could launch more products, we could offer customization, and we could really double down on the SEO. What do we have to do that? Well, Scott, you were talking a little while ago about setting up and getting launched early, right? Launching early and often. The sooner we launch, the better position we can get in terms of getting that data. And so for me, I would be looking at a few things. If you don't want to spend on Etsy ads, and you don't have to, but it is a shortcut, a hack, if you will, for getting more sales and more data back more quickly, you do have to think about how can you start to get that data and how can you put yourself in that position. So you would have to be launching earlier. You would have to be launching potentially more products to have more lines in the water. And you would have to be thinking more about things like offering personalization to really double down and make yourself independent, different, and unique.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. Let me go ahead and switch that camera view over. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say to that. Number one, I think you should be running Etsy ads, period. Okay, so we're going to go there. All right. The second thing is you should be utilizing the internal things that are happening within your Etsy shop. What I'm talking about is your automation as far as coupons going out. All right. So if you do not have your emails going out internally, and what I mean by that is when someone favorites your item, an email is going to get triggered and get sent out to them with a 10%, 15%, 20% off coupon, whatever you want it to be. The second thing is abandoned carts. So people haven't bought yet. You want to know how to get more sales? You get those people to buy, right? That's what I would do. And then the third thing is the people that already purchased, well, we want those people to purchase more. And what this will do now is it will also help your other products that might not be doing well to get sales. And when they get sales, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have this ripple effect to where now they'll start ranking. So you see, everything internal okay, is set up. So this way here, if we're not getting, maybe we're not spending Etsy ads or any money on Etsy ads, but we're wondering like, but I'm getting traffic. Maybe you have some social media following. Maybe you have an influencer that did a push. You should be setting up the internal stuff, because this way here, you're going to let all the marketing happen that Etsy gives us internally and let that all happen. All right. The other thing is like you said, Chris, launch more products. Well, if we have those other things in place, people have favorited our shop, they favorited our items, things like that. Well, now they're also going to get notifications when we do something in our shop. So if you run a sale in your shop, they're going to get a notification. Hey, so-and-so is running a sale. Go check it out. Or maybe your item that went out of stock is back in stock. Hey, just want to let you know, so-and-so got their item back in stock. Go check it out, right? So those are the internal things that I would be focusing on to get sales without having to spend more money on the Etsy ads. But with that being said, I would still be spending money on the Etsy ads. The question is, how do I get more sales coming in from the Etsy ads, or now organically when I'm getting people coming in because I was able to drive sales, drive my rank through using Etsy ads? So that's my point of view. That's kind of how I look at it, and that's what I would recommend. All right, let's move on to the next one, Chris. This is another good one. And let me just go ahead and move up my questions here. There we go. Okay. How many products should I launch in Q4? Chris, what's the number?
As many as humanly or AI-ly possible, right? You should be putting as many lines in the water as you possibly can, as long as they are relevant products. Now, if you want an actual number, I'd say if you could launch 3 or 4 a week, that would be great. The thing that I think a lot of people miss out on, Scott, is when they think of products, they confuse the word product with design, right? So how many designs should I launch? Not remembering that you can apply one design to multiple products. And what I would like to see people do is coming up with as many creative designs for each of the different things that are happening in Q4 as they can, but then also thinking about how to apply this to as many different product types as possible. So not just creating one t-shirt and launching that and saying that's cool, but can you take that design that you spent the time to create and apply that to multiple different kinds of products? The answer is yes. If it does well on a t-shirt, it'll probably do okay on a mug. It'll probably do okay on a pillow. It'll probably do okay on a garden flag. It'll probably do okay on a tumbler. It'll probably do great for a laptop sticker. And if we can start to think about it that way, then launching 3, 4, 5 products a week becomes a lot easier, because we only have to create 1 or 2 designs, and we can multiply that over a different a number of different product types. And so, I would be kind of hard pressed to give you a hard and fast rule on a specific number of things, other than saying launch as many as you can do and still keep up the quality. But if you think about it that way, rather than saying I have to create 15 new designs just for Christmas, maybe you only have to create 3 or 4, but you can create 30 or 40 products out of that and have 30 or 40 lines in the water based on those 3 or 4 designs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I love that, because again, we're trying to put as many products out there as we can. Now, with that being said, you want to do your product research. You want to make sure that these products have demand, because you can throw up a bunch of products and just be wasting a ton of time. So I would say after you've already went through a Q4, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what products sold. And I'll give you an example. So my wife, we're looking back at last year's sales, and we can see that there's like 4 primary products that did really well. So now what she's doing is she's adding other designs now to those types of products, right? You might think that tumblers are selling, they're going to sell for me, and they might not in your niche, right? But maybe pillows will. So now you're going to say, well, how can I build off of the pillows, right? So that's another way of doing this. So I don't think that just launch thousands of products. I think be smart about it. Do your product research. Use Everbee. Find the products that you think have the best chance of you getting sales in your niche. Because I think if you can then focus on less products, but be able to really focus all that energy and your Etsy ads and all of your promotions and stuff on that, you're probably going to do better. But with what you said, Chris, in the very beginning, I think launching products gives you also the opportunity to have more chances for you to get picked up by the search. Also, you're able to test more products to see which ones do actually work for your niche and for your shop. So I think it does come down to the individual. If you do have history, my recommendation is go back to your past sales in that period and see what did well, and then build off of them if you can, or what else would go well with that. And I'd start thinking along those lines. If you're selling a tumbler, and there might be something that goes with the tumbler, right? Like maybe you notice that in another niche, people are buying tumblers and they're buying the sweatshirt, right? Well, then maybe you want to create a sweatshirt that goes along with the tumbler or something like that. That would be the direction that I would go. So there's no fast, hard rule that you have to have 100 products need to be done. But I would say when you are doing this, launching products on a regular basis is most likely going to help you. Also, because now you're going to be showing up and you're going to be also getting indexed, and you're also going to be giving your customers more opportunities to buy more than just one product. So I really, really like that. All right, Chris, do we have any questions in the queue that we want to address, or are we good to wrap up this Q4 Etsy little mistake call here?
We do. So how do you decide what products to offer personalization on, Scott? Do you just design with that in mind, or are there specific things that you're looking for when you make the decision to say, hey, this is going to be a personalized product versus this is just going to be a print and go type of thing?
Well, I think it starts with like doing the research and to start thinking along the lines of what could I offer that could be personalized versus thinking about, could I personalize this now that I've already created it? I'd be going at it with the idea of, let me go and see what already is selling in personalization, and maybe not even in your niche, but in another, maybe a niche that's closely related or similar, and then see how they're doing personalization. And then you're like, oh, people are personalizing a pillow with a zip code, which by the way, I found that like people are buying a pillow and their zip code could be from where they're from. And then what they do is they get the pillow with their zip code to remind them of where they're from. Right. So I never would have thought of that if I didn't do that research. So then I start thinking, is there something that I could do personalization with a zip code in my niche? Would that make sense? And then I would start going that direction versus the other, right? So starting to just think and keep in mind, like, how can I create products that can be personalized? Like I said, Stephen Chin, the guy that I interviewed, that's $1 million seller, he basically only looks at personalization. That's all he does. Like his whole business is built off of personalization. That's all. Doesn't do anything else. But so the mindset is, let's do some research on personalization and finding products that can be personalized and then go there. So that's how I would approach that.
I think the other thing that this can do for you, Scott, by thinking about that during the design process, it can make your life a lot easier. So let's say we have a fishing store, right? We could create a I love bass fishing pillow, or I love fishing for bass, I love fishing for trout, I love fishing for whatever, and come up with 300 different listings. Or we could have the I love fishing for custom thing. And then you can get the weird people that are like, I love fishing for compliments. I love fishing for, apples. I love, like they can make it their own, and it saves us a lot of work on the back end by going that route. It allows us to pick up more sales, and it allows us to charge more, because even if we're using a tool like Hello Custom, it has a much higher perceived value than I'll just call it a non-customer generic product, because it has that higher perceived value. We can charge more. And so even if we're using something like Hello Custom, which makes it easier on our end, the end customer doesn't know that. And so they're still willing to pay more to put a funny joke on the pillow, or, say, I love fishing for compliments, to buy that, for their significant other, just to screw with them, rather than saying, I love fishing for trout, I love fishing for bass, whatever that is. Scott, I've heard that if you launch too many products in your store at the same time, like 25 all at once, it's not good for the store. Is that true?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know why that would be true. I don't think Etsy's going to penalize you because you launched 25 products. I think if anything, they're like, cool, awesome. Now, if we're talking about, okay, can you get more benefit out of launching them over maybe a week, let's say? Yes, I agree with that, because now Etsy's also looking at the activity inside of your account that you as the owner are putting into it. I do think that Etsy looks and sees activity that's happening in the account. I will say this. So my wife kind of took a little bit of some time off, right? We were doing beach volleyball with my daughter and we were busy and we're traveling and everything. And she just kind of like let it kind of coast, like let it sit. Didn't put any new products in it for probably 6 to 8 weeks. And then just recently started adding new products in because we're gearing up for Q4. And then all of a sudden she starts getting some orders on her older stuff. Why is that? It's probably because there was activity and now all of a sudden Etsy noticed and started giving us a little bit more reach and a little bit more, traffic. So I do think there is something to being active, and being active, I mean, putting new products in your store. So if you're just brand new, I wouldn't wait to drip because you're going to be adding more. I would dump the 25 in there and say, okay, let's get another 10 and let's go ahead and maybe do 2 or 3 a day. Right. And then that way there, you're keeping active, but I'd want to put a bunch of products in there to kind of build out the store in the beginning. And then I might drip them. So if I have 25 ready, I might just launch 5 of them a day for a week or something. Right. But if it's closer, if we're getting closer to Q4 and we're getting closer to that Halloween deadline or whatever holiday it is, I'm going to go ahead and just put them in there as quick as possible. Because the minute that they go in there, they start getting indexed. So maybe that's what they were talking about. Don't know. I don't know who the advice came from, but I don't agree with that. If I launch 25 products all at once, it's bad for my shop. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think it's objectively bad for the shop. I think the people who would be most likely to do this would be new stores. And so it may feel like it's bad because you don't have a sales history and you're waiting for Etsy to give you the chance to sell those products. So you go, that must be I launched 25 products. That must be the reason. I would say I agree 100% with you, Scott. The more consistent we can be with this, the better off we are going to be. So there's a couple reasons for that. One, it shows that consistent activity. Two, if we're trying to launch 25 products a day, it probably means that we're not spending the time to create great designs. It probably also means that we're not spending the time to do the keyword research or the sales history research or any of the other research that should go into creating a optimized listing. And that could be the reason. That's much more likely the reason than Etsy saying, whoa, you launched more than one product today. We're going to put you in the timeout chair. No, that's not likely the reason. And so should you do that all day, every day? Probably not, because you're going to have lower quality designs, lower quality listings, all of those kinds. Unless you have this massive team, you're much better off launching one product a day over those 25 days than working all month long and then just saying, on the 31st of this month, I'm going to launch all 31 new things. You're much better off launching them along the way because it allows you to make sure that all of those things are done consistently with quality. You're showing Etsy those consistent things, and they're starting to get some of that data back on the listings you launched on the first of the month. And if you guys haven't checked it out yet, there's a video on the YouTube channel about what happened when Scott's wife launched 30 products in 30 days. We called it the Product Blitz. Very interesting data behind that. So if you have the time and you want to launch 30 products for Halloween, absolutely go ahead and create all of those products. But if you can drip it out, awesome. If you have to launch them all on the same day, that should be okay too. There's no real reason why that wouldn't work. It's just the more consistent you can be, you're sending all of the other good signals as well. And so that would be the approach that I would prefer to see you take. Also, right, if we're waiting to launch all 25, 30, 31 of those products all at once, we're losing out on the other 30 days of the month where we could start to be getting indexed for the first 29 products by launching it all on day 30 of the month. So we're losing out on precious time, which, as we've been talking about for the entire time we've been having this conversation, right? Every single minute that we can be indexed on Etsy, we're collecting data. And the more data we can collect, the better off we're going to be. So the sooner we can launch those things, the better off we are going to be. Scott, do you recommend that people up their Etsy ads budget for Q4? So not only should they be running ads, but should they be spending more during the fourth quarter inside of that Etsy ads budget?
Yeah, I believe that we should try to maximize what we're spending. Now, again, where it gets a little confusing for people, and it just common sense tells them that, well, wait a minute, I'm spending money. If in the dashboard of the Etsy ads, I'm not making a profit, or I'm not making what I want to make, then it's not working. We need to flip that around, and we need to be like, well, wait a minute here. I'm running the Etsy ads. I got this many orders. How many orders did I get organically? And that's probably why you got those orders, is because you were running the Etsy ads. So you have to kind of look at it that way. So I would say, and there's been some studies out there that people have done internally with their own shops and stuff. I really haven't done that yet. I haven't really been too concerned with it. I might run a test on this, but basically some say if you give the max budget that Etsy allows you, they will actually work harder for you and put you out in front of more, but also more targeted. And so if you're brand new, it might say the max you can spend a day is 25 bucks. After you've done that, it'll then say, okay, now the maximum might be 100 bucks. And then it might be maximum might be 500 bucks. And it kind of keeps going up. What I personally am going to try to do, and you got to keep an eye on it when you're doing this stuff, is give them full reign. Like, here you go. I'm willing to spend it. Go ahead, put it here. And you need to remember this though, is you're not paying just for your ads to be displayed. You're only paying if someone clicks. So a lot of times, even though you might say spend 25 bucks, you only spend 10, right? But you allowed it to not have any restraints. So I really believe that taking the Etsy ads and scaling them up is going to help the entire shop. But again, it's scary for a lot of people because the mindset is I put $1 in, I got to see $1 come directly out of the Etsy ads, and they don't look at the organic stuff that it's helped, right? Without the Etsy ads, you might not have gotten the organic stuff, right? And that's kind of what Stephen Chin has kind of said. He's only using the Etsy ads as a tool so he can get 80% of his sales organically over here. So it's kind of like you're manipulating the algorithm in a way, but in an ethical way, right? Because you're willing to spend money on ads to get the sales to then boost your organic. So that's what I would do. That's my thoughts. That's my philosophy.
Before you raise your budget, if you're running Etsy ads now, look at optimizing what you're currently spending, right? You can increase your budget without spending more money by getting rid of garbage keywords, right? So the example that we've used in the past is flip-flops, sandals, and thongs, right? A flip-flop is referred to as a thong in some English-speaking countries like Australia. It is not referred to that way, at least by anybody I've ever met. Scott, correct me if you know somebody in the US that has referred to it that way, in the US or Canada, right? And so if we see that that keyword is coming up over and over again inside of our Etsy ads keywords report, we probably want to turn that off unless we are selling for an Australian audience. Before you go from $5 a day to $10 a day, you need to be trimming out the garbage. And if you don't do that, what you'll find in a lot of cases is that there's a lot of search volume for things that are mildly related to the thing that you're trying to do. Travel mug, tumbler, cup, right? I don't want this showing up for cup. It's not a cup. But Etsy, when we run Etsy ads, a lot of times we'll say, well, somebody might call this a cup. So I'm going to give you impressions and just see what happens. And then it's up to you to determine if it's worth it for you or not. If we don't go through that pruning process, when we go to spend more money, a lot of times what will happen is we just end up spending $1,000 a day. I know that's a ridiculous example because most people don't have $1,000 a day PPC budget, $1,000 a day on cup, and nobody's ever going to buy from that. But if we spent $10 a day just on the keyword tumbler, we'd sell a lot more of these, or insulated water bottle to travel with, which, by the way, apparently I need a new one. This one, the paint's falling off. And so if you are currently running ads, before you increase that budget, you need to prune back what you are spending on that's not working before you just go from $5 to $10 to $25 a day. Scott, I do agree. I think there is something to be said for spending whatever that max budget is if you can afford to do it, because it gives Etsy more data points. Everything that we're trying to do is to give Etsy as much wiggle room as possible, whether it's launching our listings earlier, whether it's spending on PPC. And so if we can spend to that budget, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're ever going to spend $25 a day, but giving Etsy that flexibility to test as many different places as possible lets Etsy get that information back to say, hey, this works really well when it shows up for Tumblr. We're going to double down and show them for Tumblr, not just on the paid side, but also on the organic side. It also gives us, as the person in charge of our ads, the data to say, hey, I'm spending $18 a day on cup. I don't need to be doing that. Let me just go in and turn that keyword off And maybe instead of spending $25 a day, even though that's our budget, it drops to 15, but it's more profitable. That's worth it for us. So I would say it's definitely worth looking at spending more money in Q4. But before you do that, you need to look at what you're spending now and if that budget is optimized. If not, optimize first, see how much you're spending, and then start to incrementally increase that to see how far you can start to take that budget. Does that make sense?
Yep. One last question here, and then we're going to wrap this up. And this does have to do with Etsy ads once again. And that is, do you recommend running ads on your entire shop or just on specific products or categories? And here's what I would say to that. I personally think that you should look at the products that have the best opportunity for searches. And really that comes down to doing your research to see what ones have more, I want to say mass appeal, but for your niche, right? So what I mean by that is if your product can possibly only sell 100 a month and it's across everyone else that's selling it, I probably wouldn't focus on pushing that product. I would then want to find products that had the potential to sell 500 a month or maybe 1,000 a month or more. Then those are the ones that I would put all of my time and energy into as far as the Etsy ads go. So that's what I would want to do. Now, does that mean that particular product has to be your highest profit? No, because we can make that up if we've done our good, building out of the store of other products that potentially that customer would want to buy. Because here's the deal. How many times have you walked into a store because you were going to buy one thing, and then while you were there, you added 3 other things that you didn't really plan on buying, but you were there and they made sense and they were related to what you came in for, but you didn't plan on it. So having products that not necessarily everyone is searching for right now, but if someone walked into your store and they saw them, they might throw it in the shopping cart. That's a good idea. So you might just want to be using the products that have good demand. All right. A lot of good searches. Doesn't mean you're not going to make money on those. You still want to make money, but maybe that product you're only making $5, but you really want to make 10 or 15 or $20 on each sale. That might come from having the other products that are in your shop. So me personally, I wouldn't want to take my budget and just put it over top of, 600 products, right? I'd want to focus it down to it's more narrow. So then the budget can work on those. And then it's also easier to manage. So I would say, pick out the ones that have the most potential for traffic and then go from there. Because the other thing you got to think about is once you start getting sales through this, you're getting it through the Etsy ads, but it also is going to give you the organic reach. And then that way there, you're going to be able to capitalize on that as well. But if you're just going after maybe 100 sales per month, probably not worth putting time and effort into that product or into the Etsy ads for that product. Chris, anything you want to say to that before we wrap up?
No, I would say it comes down to potential. The more products we can include, the better off we are. But if we know that the max on that is 5 sales a month, it's probably not worth distracting the budget that way, if that makes sense. I would rather see the budget invested in products that we know will sell and keywords that we know will result in sales. And if we can do those 2 things, we can make more sales by spending less money. And at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants. That's why people object to running ads to begin with, Scott, is they don't want to spend the money, even though it results in sales. And so if we can minimize the amount of money that we are spending, but maximize the amount of sales that we are generating with that, it makes it a lot easier for people to wrap their heads around why they would want to run the ads to begin with. And if we're doubling down on the things that we know have the most volume, then the more sales we get through the paid side of things, the more sales we'll earn on the organic side of things, because it has that room to run. If I have a maximum of 5 sales a month that I'm going to get from something, and I'm getting all of those from ads, then running the ads don't really give me a huge benefit outside of those sales. If I have 500 a month that I can sell, and I'm getting 5 or 10 a month through sales from ads, then that can really help start that flywheel of the organic growth by saying, hey, when people come to this listing, they really like to buy it. They're going to buy it more than they buy the other listing who's not running ads, or, the other listings that people are coming to in this space. That gives us an outsized benefit for the amount of money that we're spending on the ads.
Perfect. I love it. All right, guys. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap this up. But Before you go, I got a couple things for you. Number one, if you got value from this live stream, do me a favor and go ahead and smash the like button, leave a comment down below, give us your biggest takeaway from today's live stream. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you can head on over to iTunes and leave us a review over there and give us your biggest takeaway there. We would appreciate that. And then the other thing is, we are going to be running a Q4 Etsy sales training camp. And what this is our preseason to the season, the Q4 season, which is coming. And it's going to be a 4-week long training camp. All right. And every single week, we're going to meet for an hour to an hour and a half. And we are going to go over one area that we're going to be focusing on to really take advantage of Q4. So again, it's kind of like these are training sessions. These are workout sessions, like if we were training for, football, let's say. And so if you're interested in joining us and being part of this camp, you can head on over to brandcreators.com/camp. And depending on when you're listening to this, we're starting on August 9th. So once we start, we'll close down the registration and then we'll probably have a wait list. We may run it one more time before Q4. We might not, don't know yet. We're going to see how this one goes. But if you're interested in getting in on this 4-week training camp for Q4, head on over to brandcreators.com/camp. And you can go ahead and get signed up for that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're excited because it's what we're doing already. And the whole idea came from, well, why don't we just have people follow along with what we're doing and we'll kind of explain what we're doing. And then we can help them as we're doing what we're doing. So that's kind of how it came about. And we'd love to have you join us if you're interested. One question I do hear people ask though, Chris, when we announce this was, if I'm brand new right now, I'm a brand new seller. Maybe you have your niche picked, maybe you have your shop, it's set up, but no products. Is this good for me? Is this something that I, could attend? Would I benefit from it? And the answer is 100% yes, because if I was starting over from scratch, this would be the period of time I would want to get started, because it's the biggest opportunity to get in front of buyers that are just there ready to buy because of Q4. So when my wife started a couple years ago, it was in November. It was actually a little bit late. It was like November 9th or 10th or something like that. First sale might've been the 17th or 18th. And she had like 6 sales in November. That was it. And then December, she did like her first $2,000. All right. So that was in Q4. And that was because she just got started and just threw up some products, right? Well, last Q4, she did over in 2 months, like 40 grand, right? Now this year, we're going to try to double that, We're going to do our best. But with that being said, right now is the best time. If you're watching this before Q4, this is the best time to get started because, well, people are going to be buying a lot of stuff. It's Etsy's biggest time of sales, right? Most platforms, even Amazon, right? So now would be the best time. So my recommendation would be join us, right? Go through the training camp, go ahead and get everything set up, get everything running, and we'll take you through everything that we're going to be doing to maximize the Q4 sales. So there you go. brandcreators.com/camp. We're going to go ahead and rough you guys up a little bit in a good way. We're going to give you guys some workouts to do. All right. So guys, that is going to wrap up this episode. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, smash that like button, leave a comment, let us know what you think. And until next time, take care, take action, and we'll see you soon. Take care, guys.